Tylee Palmer, a mere 12-year-old with her entire life stretching out before her, was an average teenager who tragically became a victim of unspeakable violence. Her biological mother, fearing for her daughter's safety due to an abusive husband, made the difficult decision to place Tylee into the care of the Child Protection Center. The mother genuinely believed this step would shield her child and pave the way for a brighter future. However, as fate would cruelly demonstrate, the well-meaning actions of a caring loved one only exacerbated the perilous situation for young Tylee, or Tia, as her family and friends affectionately knew her. A horrific tragedy was soon to unfold. It was, in fact, the tyrannical husband who coerced Tylee's biological mother into entrusting her to the child protection system. She was convinced that this was the only viable path to ensure her daughter's safety under such dire circumstances. As a victim of domestic abuse herself, Tylee's mother was desperate to spare her child from a similar destiny. She lacked the means and stability to raise the girl adequately. The turbulent home environment meant Tylee developed into a challenging child. She frequently absconded from home to escape parental disputes and had a tendency to wander. Consequently, in January 2015, the Child Protection Center made the decision to place the 12-year-old girl with what they believed was a wonderful family in the rural area of Chambers Flat, approximately a 40-minute drive from Brisbane, Australia. Chambers Flat is known as a tranquil and inviting community, home to around 2,500 residents. Tylee's new foster parents were the Thorburns, Rick, the patriarch, his wife, Julie, and their two sons, John, age 19, and Trent, 18. By this point, Tylee had already transitioned through several foster homes. Her challenging personality often led to dissatisfaction with new family placements, and some observers found her to be quite defiant. The Thorburn family proved to be no different. Tylee expressed discomfort at the prospect of living with two teenage boys significantly older than herself. Nevertheless, young Tylee found herself with no alternative. Rick and Julie, Tylee's new foster parents, had been married for more than 25 years. Rick, who previously worked as a truck driver, had to shift to lighter transportation after sustaining a severe back injury. He subsequently launched a mobile fast food business from a van and also managed his own horse farm. His wife, Julie, operated a home-based daycare. Across the entire region, the Thorburn family was widely regarded as highly respectable, upstanding, and exemplary, which is precisely why the Child Protection Service selected them for Tylee. For 4 months, Tylee appeared to integrate well into her new family, living there until the tragic events that would soon unfold. She attended Morrison State High School, conveniently located just a 20-minute drive from their home. It seemed as though life was finally improving for Tylee. Everyone appeared to adjust to her presence, and she was getting along with her new household. However, the reality behind closed doors was far from the seemingly idyllic facade. October 30th, 2015, dawned like any other ordinary day for the Thorburn family. Rick drove his foster daughter to school, then returned home to work on some car repairs. A few hours later, a call came in from the school. Tylee had not attended her classes. This wasn't the first instance of the girl running away. Having endured a troubled childhood, Tylee was accustomed to using escape as a coping mechanism. Yet, on this occasion, she remained unfound, a stark contrast to her usual pattern of returning quickly or being easily located. Rick made a public appeal on social media, detailing the circumstances and soliciting assistance from anyone with knowledge of Tylee's whereabouts. However, his request yielded no responses. Tylee's foster family knew she was eagerly anticipating Halloween, having already prepared her costume, which made her disappearance just before the holiday seem particularly odd. They proceeded to contact the police, and the teenager was officially reported missing. Initially, however, law enforcement didn't conduct a thorough search, as the prevailing assumption was that she would soon reappear, having merely run away again. Less than a week had elapsed since the foster child's disappearance. In the early morning hours of November 5th, 2015, an alarming call reached the police. A local fisherman had contacted emergency services to report a body he discovered entangled in the reeds within the shallow waters of the Pampa River. This location lay approximately 30 kilometers south of where Tylee had last been seen just a week prior. The remains showed significant decomposition, likely a result of animal activity in the area and the prevailing climate. Upon arriving at the scene, investigators found the body in such a deplorable state that they could not even accurately determine its sex, let alone establish an identity. They could only presume it belonged to a teenager. This horrifying discovery was largely unclothed, save for a single piece of underwear. The remains were subsequently sent for an autopsy and a thorough forensic examination. After cross-referencing with local missing persons reports, police theorized the body might belong to 12-year-old Tylee, who had vanished approximately a week earlier. This horrifying suspicion was later conclusively confirmed through laboratory DNA testing, validating the police's gravest fears. During the examination, experts concluded that the injuries, initially misidentified as animal bites, were most likely human-inflicted. The shocking findings confirmed Tylee had fallen victim to monstrous violence. The case was immediately reclassified as a murder, prompting a full-scale investigation. Given that Rick Thorburn was ostensibly the last person to see Tylee alive, law enforcement commenced their inquiry by interviewing him. From the outset, Rick's demeanor and the inconsistencies in his statements raised red flags, though these suspicions required rigorous proof and verification. Investigators decided to interview other members of the Foster family, hoping someone might possess more critical information. Yet, these interrogations yielded no valuable insights. Each family member corroborated the patriarch's account that he had dropped his foster daughter off at school at 7:50 a.m., and she had not been seen since. Following these interviews, investigators proceeded to the school to corroborate the family's testimony. It was here that they uncovered more crucial information. Detectives spoke with every student in Tylee's 7th grade class, her friends, and her teachers, interviewing over 100 individuals in total. The alarming discovery was that absolutely no one had seen Tylee arrive for class that day, or even in the vicinity of the school. A review of the school's internal and external CCTV footage from the day of the girl's disappearance further solidified the detective's conviction. Tylee had not entered the school, nor had she been seen at the entrance, which was undeniably perplexing. Where then could the girl have vanished to? Curiously, some of Tylee's friends among the student body alleged that their classmate was experiencing serious difficulties within her foster family. One friend recounted how Tylee had pleaded with her to take her home, claiming her foster parents were mistreating her and she anticipated significant trouble. However, given her young age, the friend was unable to make such a decision for her own family or bring Tylee home, and she hadn't fully grasped the severity of the situation. Tragically, Tylee soon met a terrible end. This distressing conversation occurred barely a week before Tylee vanished. The friend suspected a connection between these events. However, Tylee had not elaborated on the specific nature of the mistreatment by her foster family. After interviewing other students, police concluded that Tylee had no known enemies, nor anyone else who might wish her harm. Consequently, suspicions regarding the Foster family intensified, and investigators continued to scrutinize the Thorburns. Yet, the members of the Foster family vehemently denied all allegations of domestic violence, asserting that Tylee was fabricating these claims, just as she had reportedly done with previous foster families from whom she had run away and complained about. Police verified this information, confirming Tylee's history of running away and her reputation as a challenging teenager. Everyone close to the family, including their neighbors, consistently described them as an exemplary household. Indeed, many parents entrusted their children to the Thorburns' private home daycare, and no one could fathom that such ostensibly respectable individuals would harm Tylee. The prevailing assumption was that she had simply run off, concocted a story of mistreatment as she had in the past, and subsequently encountered some peril, becoming a victim of an unrelated assault. Thus, lacking concrete reasons to suspect the family, the police initially left them undisturbed. Law enforcement, also believing the family to be exemplary, shifted their focus to other potential avenues for the murder's cause, while the foster family continued to operate their home-based daycare. As part of the ongoing inquiry, detectives interviewed approximately 300 registered sex offenders in the area, considering their potential involvement in sexual assaults. However, even this extensive effort failed to produce any meaningful leads or the slightest clue regarding what might have befallen the teenager. The majority of these individuals provided credible alibis, and some no longer resided in the area, making it impossible to identify suspects from this particular list. On December 4th, 2015, a significant discovery was made. Shoes believed to belong to Tylee were found 100 meters from the body's recovery site, along with her backpack, which she had reportedly taken to school. The unfolding story quickly became sensational, capturing widespread public attention. It was extensively broadcast across numerous Australian television channels, ensuring that the entire nation gradually became aware of the case. In the lead-up to the funeral, several public protests were organized. People passionately demanded that those responsible for the girl's horrific and undeserved death be brought to justice. Tylee's biological mother spearheaded these demonstrations, publicly demanding answers from the police regarding her daughter's demise and appearing on television to galvanize public awareness. The mother expressed profound outrage that Child Protective Services had seemingly failed in their duty to care for the daughter she had entrusted to them. This sentiment contributed, in part, to the astonishing turnout at Tylee's funeral on November 14th, where over 600 people gathered to pay their respects. Most attendees had never even met Tylee during her life. Many mourners wore white and purple t-shirts, adorned with hearts and Tylee's name. Purple, her favorite color, was prominently featured. Approximately 400 white roses graced her casket, and purple balloons were released into the sky as the hearse transported her for a private cremation. 5 months elapsed since Tylee Palmer's murder, yet law enforcement officials remained without any concrete leads. To spur progress, a substantial reward of 250,000 Australian dollars, approximately 160,000 US dollars, was offered for any information pertinent to the case. Tylee's mother made a heartfelt televised plea for assistance, imploring eyewitnesses to come forward and urging those responsible for the heinous crime to confess. Beyond the financial incentive, police also guaranteed immunity from prosecution for any accomplice who had not directly committed the murder and was the first to provide crucial information. Nonetheless, even these measures proved insufficient to unearth new facts. While police did receive several calls from concerned citizens, none yielded any valuable information. Summer 2016 arrived, and law enforcement still found themselves without even a primary suspect. Detectives meticulously interviewed numerous individuals with a history of sexual abuse, but to no avail. The advanced state of decomposition of the body when it was discovered left forensic experts with virtually no clues, preventing investigators from even determining the precise cause of death. Their sole working theory was that the girl might have been strangled, evidenced by a broken hyoid bone. At that time, the most plausible scenario considered by police was that a passing motorist had abducted Tylee near the school. The designated parent drop-off zone lacked CCTV camera coverage, leaving a potential blind spot where anything could have transpired. However, this remained merely a police theory. The 250,000 Australian dollar reward, intended for anyone providing information leading to the perpetrator's capture, also remained unclaimed. It wasn't until May 2016, following more than 6 months of relentless investigative work, that the State Police Department finally received an anonymous tip. The caller claimed to possess crucial information concerning Tylee and the Thorburn foster family she had been placed with. According to the unidentified witness, the Thorburns had intentionally sought out a problem child from the outset, enabling them to receive higher welfare benefits for the girl. The informant asserted that the family harbored no genuine affection for Tylee, their interest being purely financial. Furthermore, the caller confidently alleged that all members of the Thorburn family might have been complicit in Tylee's fate. Regrettably, The individual provided no further details before disconnecting the call. The caller's identity was never established, preventing investigators from obtaining additional information. However, this anonymous tip prompted police to revisit the theory of the foster family's involvement in the murder. Early in the investigation, reports from students detailing domestic violence at the Thorburn residence had emerged, but these claims could not be substantiated at the time and were subsequently dismissed. With renewed purpose, detectives decided to reapproach the foster family. Verifying the anonymous claims, police re-interviewed several school students. One of Tylee's friends disclosed that Tylee had confided in her about an intimate relationship with the youngest Thorburn son, 19-year-old Trent, who was locally regarded as quite attractive. Given her age, the girl didn't fully comprehend the dynamics, believing they were in a genuine relationship, as Trent had led her to believe. Tylee had even developed feelings for Trent and enjoyed the horses on the farm. Yet, simultaneously, she felt deeply intimidated by both Trent and the entire family, which fueled her desire to escape. It's plausible that, beyond sexual abuse, severe physical abuse was also inflicted upon the girl within the home. While these student statements warranted thorough investigation, repeated interrogations of the family members still yielded no confessions. All family members continued to categorically refute the suspicions and accusations leveled against them, particularly regarding the harassment of a minor. However, due to the escalating suspicions, the Thorburns' permit to operate a kindergarten was revoked and their foster family permit was suspended. Law enforcement then proceeded to install clandestine listening devices within the family's residence. The wiretaps began to yield shocking information on an almost daily basis, systematically dismantling the facade of a respectable family that the spouses and their sons had so diligently maintained. For instance, investigators discovered that on October 29, 2015, the family held a meeting, and it was the very next day that Tylee disappeared. During this meeting, Trent disclosed to his parents that Tylee was complaining of a suspicious stomachache. This revelation immediately sparked concern and suspicion among Rick and Julie regarding a possible accidental pregnancy involving the 12-year-old girl. It became clear that the foster family had learned about their youngest son's intimate relationship with Tylee shortly before her disappearance. Trent had engaged in sexual intercourse with her when no one else was home. The wiretap captured Trent admitting that he had intercourse with his foster sister on multiple occasions. Their illicit relationship had reportedly spanned approximately 10 months, covering almost the entire duration of Tylee's placement in their care. Eventually, the then 19-year-old Trent confided in his parents when suspicions surfaced about Tylee's potential pregnancy. He was terrified that their relationship would be exposed, especially given that the 7-year age difference effectively rendered him a criminal in the eyes of the law. Rick, the family patriarch, reassured his son, instructing him not to worry, promising he would sort this problem out. Based on the Thorburns' recorded dialogues, it became evident that Tylee feared her foster father, Rick, immensely, likening him to fire. Her greatest fear was being left alone with him. These fears, it appeared, were far from unfounded. The rest of the family also regarded him with no less trepidation, as it was later proven that beneath the veneer of a respectable family man lurked an exceptionally cruel and dangerous individual. That same evening, following the discussion, Rick deliberately forced all other family members out of the house, remaining alone with his foster daughter. When the family returned a couple of hours later, as instructed, Tylee was nowhere to be found. Upon questioning regarding her disappearance, the family patriarch stated that she had simply run away and that the problems with her had been resolved. He ominously added that she would now definitely not tell anyone anything. The family began to harbor chilling fears that Rick had killed her, given his unsettling certainty that she would remain silent. When one of the brothers attempted to check Tylee's room, their father, Rick, forbade it in a menacing tone. None of the Thorburns dared to defy him, and the matter was seemingly dropped. It became glaringly obvious that Rick's initial story about dropping his foster daughter off at school, after which she disappeared, was a fabrication. In truth, he couldn't have done so, as by that point, Tylee was no longer in the house and, most likely, already deceased. The precise nature of what Rick had done to Tylee remained unknown, a secret he concealed even from his own family. Through the wiretaps, detectives overheard Rick instructing the others on what to say and how to act to evade police suspicion, and they dutifully complied. Law enforcement first summoned the sons and their mother for questioning, anticipating they would be the most susceptible to pressure. Gradually, as police revealed the extent of their gathered information, they began to speak. The more detectives probed, the clearer the horrifying truth of what had transpired within their home became. Rick, it seemed, had attempted to portray his actions as an effort to protect his family. After a meticulous review of the school's external surveillance footage, police were fully convinced that the patriarch of the Thorburn family had meticulously orchestrated a cover-up for his crime, attempting to reinforce his deceitful narrative to the investigators. For instance, while Rick did indeed drive towards the school that morning, and his vehicle was captured by several CCTV cameras, none of the footage depicted Tylee exiting the car. Following these revelations, the Thorburn family faced a barrage of public criticism and official suspicion. Julie and John were accused of providing false testimony and attempting to obstruct the investigation. Trent was charged with violence, while Rick faced charges of first-degree murder and similar attempts to obfuscate the investigation. Detectives theorized that Rick had deliberately killed the girl and then brutally mutilated her body with the express intent of preventing forensic experts and police from identifying her. This tactic partially succeeded, as the victim's gender was initially unclear. Fortunately, however, full identification of the remains proved possible. Evidently, Rick remained unaware of the existence or capabilities of DNA testing. Furthermore, law enforcement had compelling reasons to believe that Rick was engaged in brutal physical and sexual abuse of all children in his care, including his own sons. In total, 9 charges were brought against him, some entirely unrelated to Tylee's murder. Trent, for his part, was accused of incest and perjury. The family's car, which had been suspiciously sold immediately after Tylee's disappearance, was confiscated from its new owner for forensic inspection. Bloodstains were subsequently discovered within the vehicle. The mounting pressure took a toll on Rick's health. He lost consciousness on the day of his arrest while in pretrial detention. His condition was so severe that doctors were compelled to place him in an induced coma. However, after a few days in the hospital, Rick regained consciousness. Doctors speculated that he might have intentionally induced his condition by self-medicating, but thankfully, this monstrous individual could not evade accountability for his crimes. Finally, the Thorburn family began to appear in court, one by one. The sheer cynicism and profound cruelty of the events sent shockwaves through the public. People were so enraged, they metaphorically wanted to tear apart the entire family for their inhuman cruelty towards a girl. The prosecution's case was so compelling that the defense garnered little serious consideration during the trial. Julie and John informed the court that they pleaded guilty to all charges and consented to testify against Trent and Rick. The jury, with minimal deliberation, concurred that all family members were indeed culpable, albeit on varying charges. Consequently, John was sentenced to 3 months in prison. His mother, Julie, received a 1.5-year term for perjury. Trent, who also confessed to his involvement, was sentenced to 4 years for incest, perjury, and attempting to obstruct justice. Tragically, the mother and sons, including Trent, who sexually abused Tylee, are now free. Trent was released on January 19, 2018, having served merely 16 months in custody. Rick, the most violent perpetrator in this case, who confessed during the trial to brutally murdering Tylee in a barn and concealing her body in a river, partly to protect his son and the family's reputation, among other crimes, received a life sentence in May 2018 with the earliest possibility of parole set at 20 years. The horrifying details of the case did not merely ignite public fury and widespread outrage across all Australian television channels. They also compelled the Australian legal system to initiate a comprehensive review of the laws governing the protection of children within the foster care system. Consequently, the system underwent modernization to implement stricter checks, specifically targeting the identification of potential criminal histories and guardians with legal issues. Furthermore, several new provisions were introduced applicable to challenging teenagers and the couples intending to adopt them. If you found my work insightful, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving this video a like, and sharing your thoughts on this story in the comments below. Thank you all and goodbye.